Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy Crampton and I'm a professor in architecture, planning and landscape, and I thought I'd just start off with a video I took a couple of years ago before lockdown, standing in front of Putney Bridge in London. And you may remember a few years ago there was an incident on this bridge. Looking back pretty much the way we're looking now, here's some surveillance footage of the time. You have to look very carefully up in the top of the video. But there's a man running, it's a jogger, here it is in slow motion, and as he runs along he passes by one pedestrian without doing anything, and then he seems to veer into the path of this woman who he suddenly pushes, and she falls down right in front of a London double-decker bus, and it was only because of the skill and observation of the driver that she was prevented from getting run over. So one of the reasons I wanted to share that particular example with you is because the man who was then identified through some of that surveillance footage is a guy called Belquist, and he was identified because of facial recognition technology. So that is, they compared his picture from the bus surveillance camera with a database of pictures that they must have had, the scraped from the internet, and it turned out after they identified him they put out his name in the press, and it was not him, and we know it was not him because he was actually out of the country at the time, so he was able to show that it couldn't have possibly been him. And I think what this shows is a very interesting use case of how facial recognition technology can go wrong. But secondly, I think that it's interesting because there was a lot of press about it, and it's indicative to me in some ways of some of the structural issues around surveillance, which is what I'm interested in, that a white man should get all this press. You know, he was in The Guardian and the BBC and so on, whereas the sort of the everyday violence of facial recognition and other forms of surveillance is not so well remarked upon. So that's a little bit about what I'm interested in, which is surveillance, the urban environment, and some of these more challenging, I would say, examples of geotechnology. So if you want to know more, I've written a number of essays about this, a number of articles about this, and I'm actually working right now on a book whose title is The Map and the Spyglass, but it's not written yet, so check back in about a year. All right, well, I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight into some of my interests, and I hope to see you all either on Zoom or in person at some point in the near future.